Well, MSU alumna Sheri Jones is a broadcasting and journalism icon in the greater Lansing area. She's been anchoring the news at Lansing's CBS affiliate WLNS TV6 for 35 years, and she's now also on Lansing's ABC affiliate WLAJ. We last spoke in 2018 when Sheri was inducted into the Michigan Association of Broadcasters Hall of Fame, and Sheri is now in 2023 being inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. So I wanted to have her back to congratulate her. Hello, Sheri.
Oh my gosh, Russ! I can't believe 5 years ago, and here we are. Oh, I'm honored to be here in the studio with you. Thank you for.
And I know this means a lot to you. Broadcasting is great, but there's a lot of broadcasters. But being a broadcast journalism and being recognized for both, I think, feels good, right?
It absolutely does. It feels different. It really does, because the true sense of the word journalism. You know, I really believe that journalists, as I once heard, write the first draft of history, you know? Like, we're watching things as they unfold, and we're writing it down from a factual, experiential point of view. And so for me to have done that for 35 years and tackled some pretty big issues in our community, and to be recognized for the journalism part of it, I'm awestruck by it.
Well, we'll talk more about that in a minute, but take us back, sort of your background. Where did you grow up, and why was MSU the place for you when college came around?
Well, it just felt like the place. When I came for my visit, I felt very comfortable here. It was a gut feeling, and I always tell parents and with their students, you got to know, you have to let your child decide with their gut. I was accepted to the school down the street, and I went there with my parents, and my dad was like, do you like it? Do you like it? Do you like? I'm like, Dad, I don't, I just don't feel right here. I'm from the west side of the state, small community, grew up a country girl. So when I came to Michigan State, and it's really, it's a big square, and there's trees, and there's the Red Cedar, and there's open spaces, and fresh air. I just felt like this is where I belonged. And looking back, it was the correct decision for multiple reasons.
And did you always know you wanted to do broadcasting and journalism, or did that develop later after you got here?
Well, that's an interesting question, Russ, because when I was in high school, I knew I liked a lot of different things. And remember, I went to high school when there was no internet. So my mom was graduated from Western. So she said, why don't we go to Western and you take a full day aptitude test, take an educational aptitude, take a personality aptitude, an interest aptitude. So I went all day, and it came back lawyer or journalist. And I said, well, I'm going to go to Michigan State. I'm going to study journalism, communications, and then I can always go get my law degree, because I thought I'll try TV first, because you just don't know how that's going to work out. So I thought, well, I'll try TV first. And here I am 35 years later.
And people who know you know that you like to say you'd rather be right than first with story. But talk more about your philosophy of covering the news and being accurate.
Well, and 100%, and anybody knows that works with me, that is right. And we will hold off. We will hold off. And in this world of Twitter and Facebook, and as we've lived through here recently with 911 scanners and people reporting stuff on the scanner. And no. You have to have an official. You have to have someone affirm and make sure the facts that you're reporting are true. And I will always hold back until we know it's right, and then we can go. And I experienced that during Luana Simon's resignation, when I was privy to that information, and everyone around me was like, well, if you know it, and I said, well, we're going to wait until that letter has been submitted. She trusts me, and I'm going to uphold that, and then when it happened, we went. And then, as I mentioned before, it went WLNS, Detroit Free Press, New York Times.
I love it.
And so, but I mean, I'm not going to report on something that I have not vetted, that is not true. I just won't do it. I don't care if we're going to get beat. Well, what if you're wrong? I can't afford that, and my station can't afford that.
That's right. Well, and Sheri, we could have a conference on this, but how have you seen broadcasting and journalism evolve over the years, and where is it going? I mean, there's probably people that watch you on their phone or their computer as well as the TV now.
Yeah, that live streaming is really, my sister in Florida can watch me as I do the news. The shaping of the news through Facebook and Twitter, a lot of times we have to follow those leads, which is fine because people, it's instantaneous. And we'll follow those and vet those out. But the accessibility, when I grew up, my parents, boy, they sat down, they had dinner, they ate their dinner and watched the 6 o'clock news, and then they watched the evening news. And now you can watch the news wherever you are, whenever you are. If you're standing in the checkout lane, you can watch it. You can you shouldn't do it when you drive, but you can be anywhere around the United States, around the world. So it is the accessibility. But again, it has to be a trusted source, because different levels, like we're at the local level, we totally don't have an agenda. And as you move up that chain of media sources, you have to really understand what you're watching. And the algorithms of Facebook, let's say you like a certain story. Well, Facebook will feed you that information and continue to feed you that information in the vein of which your brain is telling you like. You're not going to get an opposing opinion. So you have to seek that out. And that's just the way that it's set up. So that constantly reaffirming what you think is right is only because that's where you show your interest. It's probably slanted. So local news, I had a reporter come to me. She was doing a story at the Capitol. And I'm like, well, where is the opposite point of view? And she's like, well, I got that. I didn't get that yet, and I'm waiting for it. I said, well, then you're going to hold the story. And it took her like 2 days to get the other side. But there's no way that I wasn't going to sign off on that. And so you have to have both sides of the story. Even if you say, we reached out to them and they didn't get back to us, but we'll follow up tomorrow. So people understand that that's important.
Yeah. And are there some favorite memories along the way, or things you're proud of? Like, I think of Crime Stoppers, for one, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Bob Trojanowitz, who was the head of the Criminal Justice Department here at Michigan State.
The father of community policing.
Yes, you know him well. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And
a mentor of our new, police chief, Marlon Lynch, who's now been promoted, but yes.
Wonderful. And that's why Marlon has the vision and the insight that he does, because of Dr. Trojanowitz. And he really understood community policing, and he understood how, in order for law to work and law enforcement, the community has to be kind of our eyes and ears. And so he unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack, and that was so hard for all of us. And then the voice went to Eric Ofer Seth, and then Eric retired, and then it came to me. So I have been the voice for probably 25, almost 30 years now. Our success rate, when we air Felons on Wednesday night at 11 o'clock, we might air 3 or 4 that are kind of on the run. By the next day, the next week, they either turn themselves in, their ex-girlfriends turn themselves in, their moms they will even be like, call and say, how do I get my picture off the TV? And I say, well, maybe turn yourself in. So, but right now, our success rate's at like 78%. So if we air 4, 3 will be caught within a day or 2 or the week. So very powerful in making our community safer. And then hopefully those people get the rehabilitation, get the help that they need, so they don't come back into the system. But I feel very proud of helping to make our community safer through that effort. Yeah.
And Sheri, we talked about how we just consume all this media differently now, but what's your advice to the students at MSU now as they prepare to, I don't even want to necessarily say broadcasting or journalism, because they meld together with all kinds of other things. Just what would you tell a student who wants to do something in this world now?
I would think that the world is their oyster, as they say, that we call them multimedia journalists, that you have to be versed. The first thing is you have to understand journalism. Number one, you need to understand journalism, the ethics of journalism, what it takes to get a story, to make sure that you have your sources. I had some of the toughest professors here if you misspelled a word, you got a point off. It went from a 4 to a 3. And if you said, just yesterday I had a reporter who said less and less people. And I went in and I said, okay, here you go. It's fewer and fewer people because it's plural. So just journalism, English at its core is critical. The rest of it, you can learn. You can learn how to be on camera. You can learn how to talk into a microphone. You can learn the acting part. Definitely take acting classes now, because you don't just sit behind a desk. Now I stand. I move all around the studio.
Yes.
You need to be a good storyteller. But at the beginning of that, the base of that is journalism. And in order to succeed, you need to be a good journalist. Bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. And now we talked about your long career at WLNS. No plans to stop, right? I mean, you're still engaged and love doing this.
I'm still so engaged. And when my daughter and I were just out in Sedona, and my general manager contacted me, when you come back, we need to talk about your contract renewal. Not just talk about your contract. We'll talk about your contract renewal. So that made me feel really well. I believe I'm right where I'm supposed to be, and I feel like I love my community. I love being able to help the university, the Alumni Association, you and I getting to do the parade together, being engaged in the journalism program, the communications program, the criminal justice program. I mean, being able to speak to young people. And I will never tell someone, you don't want to do this. If you want to do it, it's a life commitment. It takes over your life. You work nights and weekends and holidays, but there is no other job. I talked about not going back to law school, but do you know how often I've gotten to be in the courtroom on criminal cases, on things, civil cases, to be in a courtroom to report on that. So I've fulfilled part of that kind of desire. And I'm going to be going through with a family and reporting on an unsolved homicide case that I worked on for 16 years.
Wow.
That they're actually going to charge the person in June. So I will be reporting on that, engaged with the father of the victim, and really understanding. And I'm super excited about that.
Well, Sheri, congratulations
Thank
again
you.
on going into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame in April of 2023, and which actually the Hall of Fame is based at Michigan State University and has been since 1985. So thanks for coming in again, and again, congratulations.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you for having me.
That's Sheri Jones, lead anchor at WLNS and WLAJ TV here in Lansing, and she's being inducted into the Michigan Journalism Hall of Fame. A lot more about Sheri and her team at WLNS.com. And I'm Russ White. This is MSU.